Hey YouTube, it's EvanMagician34, and I have a really interesting deck for you today. Not long ago, the Winged Dragon of Ra got its legally playable version, kind of following suit with Obelisk, and so I've been working and pondering and trying to find a way to build a good deck around it. It's semi-casual, but it can actually do pretty well on its own. So, here we go. Obviously, we're dedicated to this. We are running 3 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra. He doesn't have all the protections of Obelisk, like, for instance, he can be targeted. But his summon can't be negated, and they can't respond to his successful summoning. So that means you don't have to worry about Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, or stuff like Bottomless Trap Hole. So that does give you some advantages, but you still need to be aware of things like Compulsory Evacuation Device, Book of Moon, especially Effect Veiler, even Honest. All these things are potential threats. So the rest of the deck is kind of dedicated to that. Obviously the idea of this deck, though, is to summon this guy when you've got higher life points, or at least fairly close life points, deal humongous damage with him in one shot, and if that doesn't finish the job, follow up on the next turn to finish the job. So anyway, that's the main thrust. This is actually a frog variant, so you'll see a lot of tribute monsters. 3 copies of Caius. He's great at dealing damage. He gets things out of the way so that he can even attack for damage, plus his effect often deals damage because dark monsters are everywhere. They're very good. So, and of course he's a great tribute monster, loves Treeborn Frog, and so on. We're also running 2 copies of Mobius the Frost Monarch. He gets rid of back rows, which are problematic for us in this deck. And in addition to that, he also can sync with Fishborg Blaster for 7, or if Treeborn's around, even 8. Because he's water attribute, so that does make him useful in this deck. We're also running 1 copy of the Wicked Avatar. He's basically a 2-turn, one-sided Cold Wave when he gets summoned successfully. While he doesn't always inflict a whole lot of battle damage himself because his attack kind of goes up and down, and usually he'll only inflict like 100 to your opponent the turn he comes out. Cool thing about him is this guy is going to help protect your next turn Raw or something like that, because your frogs will all come back. So. And now to the Frog Engine. 3 copies of Swap Frog, obviously because this guy ditches your Treeborn, and if it's in your hand you can get your Fishborg into the grave. He'll also drop Ronin Toadine into the grave. Great way to build up to that 3 tribute. And of course he can be special summoned himself, which helps. 3 copies of Treeborn, that's right, 3. We're running 3 just to make sure that if he gets removed or something like that, it's not catastrophic, and he's also a great card to pitch to the Swap Frog from your hand. So we're definitely running 3 of him. We're running just 2 copies of Fishborg Blaster. We are running 1 for 1 so we can search him. And because he can't be searched from the deck necessarily, it's a little bit rougher. So he's one of our premier tuners in the deck. We really only have 3 tuners. Fishborg Blaster, another one we're about to get to, and then of course Formula Synchron, which this guy will sync for. 1 copy of Ronin Toadine, that's all. You don't want this guy to bunch up in your hand. We're also running Gorz. He represents 2 tributes and can easily come back after your opponent attacks you to deal some good damage to help make sure that that Ra sticks for game. Tregoadia, same logic. And of course, remember, he and Gorz can also be tribute summoned, which is a realistic possibility, so you don't always have to wait on your opponent to facilitate this for you. And of course, Tregoadia syncs in interesting ways because of his ability. We're also running 3 copies of Battle Fader, a great way to keep your life points high and also get you things you can sync with. 1 copy of Sangan, searches for plenty of things in this deck. Pretty much a no-brainer there. Also a good early game stall. We're also running Plague Spreader Zombie. It's the other tuner we mentioned. We just have so many good ways we can sync, and he's another easy special summon if you need to. He really just needed to be included. As you may notice, we're running an awful lot of monsters, but we're not running any traps. And even the spells are basically dedicated just to your monsters. We're running Giant Trunade, a big sweep to make sure your Ra goes off. And following in that same vein, we're also running Cold Wave. Monster Born, it's yet another summon. 2 copies of Gold Sarcophagus so that we can search for Ra, Cold Wave, or anything else we might need to make sure that our tricks go off. We are running Allure of Darkness because we have quite a few dark monsters, and obviously drawing cards in this deck is good. We do have 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. Do be careful, of course, obviously, with what you send back to your deck. But this can be a great way if you're forced to discard a Ra or something early, you can send it back. It also stocks your Synchro monsters back into your extra deck while still drawing you cards. It definitely has some good moments. We're running 1 for 1, obvious targets and obvious reasons. Foolish Burial, very similar logic. Obviously, we're running 3 copies of Soul Exchange. This plus Monarch is another great way to inflict damage. Not that turn, of course, because you'll lose your battle phase. But it's a great way to keep depriving them of monsters and take away their powerful hitters. So, key card. Just like another Frog Dex. And last but not least, we are running 3 copies of Enemy Controller. You can sacrifice, generally speaking, it's Treeborn Frog during the standby phase to steal their monster, and you'll still get your Treeborn back, so it's a free brain control. But in a pinch, you can even sack Battle Fader as a way to get rid of monsters. And, I mean, you can always just flip it to change somebody to defense mode. Although, generally speaking, because of Ra, in this deck, we generally like our opponent's monsters in attack mode. Alright, and the extra deck. 1 copy of Shooting Star Dragon, because obviously you can't sink for it. We're just running 1 Stardust. You can try running another one by pulling out something else, probably Infernity Doom, which I'm about to get to. But really you only need 1, because Shooting Star is not exactly your primary target in the deck. Scrap Dragon. Infernity Doom. I like him because of Plague Spreader and the fact that he can deal damage when Ra's already taken most of it out of your opponent. This guy can easily finish the job, which is, needless to say, pretty good, and he gets around bottomless. Colossal Fighter. Another excellent 8-star target. Black Rose Dragon. 7 is a good target for us because of Mobius plus Fishborg. So, Black Rose. Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. If you don't have a Gungnir, that's understandable. He's still a little expensive at the moment when I'm making this video. But a second copy of Black Rose Dragon is easier to get and certainly does the job well. Scrap Archfiend, just a good 7-star beat stick, plain and simple. Goyo Guardian. Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Magical Android. Ally of Justice Catastor. Armory Arm, because you can sink for 4, and it's a good way to get things to the grave and possibly draw cards and so on. And we're also running actually 2 copies of Formula Synchron. You can pull either Catastor or the Android if you want to run a 3rd copy of this, or one of the other not as necessary synchros. You can make this extra deck focus a little bit more on Shooting Star. I don't really recommend it, but you certainly can. Alright, and that's the deck. And until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and enjoy.